So I'll just read in Hebrew this time. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Well, we started our story of Balaam, and just with an introduction to the characters, the two main characters, let's put it that way.
Let me excuse you real quickly.
Sure.
I have it open to Numbers.
Yes, we are on Numbers, just 22, verse. Well, we'll start at verse 2.
22:2.
What page is that, Marty?
In Plowed, it's 1173.
Thank you.
Find out. Oh, 20. Alrighty then.
Okay, and so Marianne, would you care to start reading? We'll start with verse 2 again, and this time and stop at the at the end of verse 4 again. Okay.
Okay. So, let me just move the book over here. Balak, son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. Moab was alarmed because that people was so numerous. Moab dreaded the Israelites, and Moab said to the elders of Midian, "Now this horde will look clean all that is about us, as an ox looks up the grass of the field."
Okay.
That's the end of 4.
Okay. Now, last week we were talking about the characters. Okay, a little bit, and basically Balaam is a seer, or some have called him a prophet, and I mean Balaam is as a seer or prophet, and Balak, or Balak, we have we discussed him as being arrogant and threatening the Israelites, amongst other things. So, could I ask you to read on, Marianne, to read what I'm going to do a little differently. I want you to start counting. You remember a few weeks ago I mentioned in this story, start counting, however you want. Okay, the numbers of passages, the numbers of events in the story, and the number of visits. Okay, as ways to start. Okay. And so what we'll try to do it, Marianne. I think this time what I would like to do is read all the way through to verse 39.
Well,
That's the entire chapter. Okay. And then we'll backtrack and try to unpack it a little bit. Okay, so start with verse 4, the other half of verse 4. Okay. Do you have that available? Oh, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I muted it. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're on verse 4. And Moab said to the elders of Midian, "Now this horde will look clean all that is about us, as an ox looks up the grass of the field." Balak, son of Zippor, who was king of Moab at that time, sent messages to Balaam, son of Beor in Pethor, which is by the Euphrates in the land of his kinfolk, to invite him, saying, There is a people that come out of Egypt. It hides the earth from view, and it is settled next to me. Come then and put a curse upon this people for me, since they are too numerous for me. Perhaps I can thus defeat them and drive them out of the land. For I know that he whom you bless is blessed indeed, and he whom you cursed is cursed. The elders of Moab and the elders of Meridian, versed in divination, set out. They came to Balaam and said to Balak's messenger, he said to them, Spend the night here, and I shall rely you to this Lord may instruct me. So the Midianite dignitaries stayed with Balaam. God came to Balaam and said, Why do these people want you? And Balaam said to God, Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab, sent me this message. There is a people that came out from Egypt and hides the earth from view. Come now and curse them for me. Perhaps I can engage them in battle and drive them off. But God said to Balaam, Do not go with them. You must not curse that people, for they are blessed. Balaam arose in the morning and said to Balak's dignitaries, Go back to your own country, for the Lord will not let me go with you. And the Moabite dignitaries left, and I see why you guys use that pointer, then came to Balak and said, Balaam refused to come with us. Then Balak sent other dignitaries, more numerous and distinguished than the first. They came to Balaam and said to him, Thus says Balak, son of Zippor, please do not refuse to come to me. I will reward you richly, and I will do anything you ask for me. Only come and damn this people for me. Balaam said to Balak's officer, Though Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not do anything, big or little, contrary to the command of God, of the Lord my God. So you too stay there overnight and let me find what else the Lord may say to me. That night God came to Balaam and said to him, If these men have come to invite you, you may go with them. But whatever I command you, you shall do. When he arose in the morning, Balaam saddled his ass and departed with the Moabite dignitaries. But God was incensed at his going. So an angel of the Lord placed him in his way as an adversary. As riding on his she-ass with his two servants alongside, when the she-ass caught sight of the angel of the Lord standing in the way, with his drawn sword in his hand, the ass swerved from the road and went into the fields. Balaam beat the ass to turn her back onto the road. The angel of the Lord then stationed himself in a lane between the two vineyards, with a fence. I have to move my book off. With a fence on either side. The ass, seeing the angel of the Lord, pressed herself against the wall and squeezed Balaam's foot against the wall, so he beat her again. Once more, the angel of the Lord moved forward and stationed himself on the spot so narrow that there was no room to swerve right or left. When the ass now saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam, and Balaam was furious and beat the ass with his stick. Then the Lord opened the ass's mouth, and she said to Balaam, What have I done to you that you beat me these 3 times? Balaam said to the ass, You have made a mockery of me. If I had a sword with me, I'd kill you. The ass said to Balaam, Look, I am the ass that you have been riding all along until this day. I've been in the habit of doing this for you. And he said, No. Then the Lord uncovered Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, his drawn sword in his hand. Thereupon he bowed right down to the ground. The angel of the Lord said to him, Why have you beaten your ass 3 times? It's me, she shielded away because of me of those 3 times. If she had not shied away from me, you were erred, because I did not know that you were standing in my way. If you still disapprove, I will turn back. But the angel of the Lord said to Balaam, Go to the men, but if you must do nothing except what I tell you. So Balaam went to Balak's dignitaries. When
Okay,
Balak
yeah,
heard that Balaam was coming, he went out to meet him at Moab, which is on the Aran border at its furthest point. Balak said to Balaam, "First I will send to invite you. Why didn't you come to me? Am I really unable to reward you?" But Balaam said to Balak, and now that I have come to you, have I the power to speak freely? I can utter only the word that God puts into my mouth. Balaam went to Balak, and they came to Kerith Huzoth. Balak sanctified the ox,
no, sacrifice.
sacrificed the ox and sheep, and had them served to Balaam and the dignitaries with him. Okay, you said up to the end of 39, right?
Uh,
40.
why don't you finish through through the end of 41? We'll
Okay.
just finish the chapter.
In the morning, Balak took Balaam up to Ben Bethel. From there, he could see a portion of the people.
Okay.
That's the end of it.
Now, this is just the first third of this story, and there's a lot to discuss.
Act
Uh,
one. Act
ex-
one of the.
Right. That's a way of looking at it. That's right. So we have several scenes, if you will, or scenarios to look at. And why do you, so what was Balak's reason for for summoning Balaam? Let's start that way. It's in the first, he has certain concerns in verse 4.
He's shadowing the Pharaoh that
Yes,
these people have become too numerous and they don't won't pay attention to me and they serve a different god.
that's right. There's I found a commentary on this to it's written by Jonathan Sachs, who is deceased now. He was the chief Lord Rab. He was actually a lord in the British Kingdom, and he was the chief rabbi in England. But he shows similarities in the phrases in Genesis. I mean in Exodus. And he said, Pharaoh said to his,
Marty,
yes,
Marty, excuse
yes,
me. For some reason my internet is very unstable. I'm going to log out and
try again.
re-enter and see, but everybody keeps on freezing on me. So give me a couple of minutes. I'll
Okay,
be back. I plan to be
okay.
back.
We're going to be talking about the comparison between the Pharaoh and Balak.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So what we have here in the book of Exodus, with regard to Egypt, Pharaoh said to his people, "Here the children of Israel is more numerous and powerful than we." And the Egyptians felt a disgust at the children of Israel. Moab is saying, and Moab was very fearful because of the people, because the people was too numerous. And Moab felt a disgust at the children of Israel. And indeed, the words that are used are similar, but have the same content. both say felt a disgust. Okay. So that's what the rabbi was alluding to. So the wording is changed just a little bit, but this is sort of a parable that is supposed to allow us to remember other parts of Torah. This is not just so that we can, so if we see this at the beginning, we know that, hey, wait a minute, things are not necessarily going to turn out well for Balak, possibly not too well for Balaam. We don't know yet, but the stories are paralleling each other. So that's the first clue. And so here it's out of fear, both in Genesis and here in the book of Numbers, the Pharaoh and Balak both fear the numbers of Israelites that are potentially in their midst. They have different reasons to support that fear. One is they're growing in numbers in Egypt, okay, and there's fear that they will eventually become too numerous to take care of, and could threaten the power structure in Egypt. In this story, the threat is again overfeed. With all that number of people passing through, they're not only going to trample the grasses, but also they're going to be trampling the concept of food, because they're going to have to be fed, and somehow they're going to have to reap any grain that they can find. And oxen are sort of halfway between cattle and sheep in the way they shear the level of the grass. Okay, you could go to our Wild West. It's a similar type of issue with grassland, because that is going to feed the herds, and they're fearful of that. So I think that's one of the fears. I think it also the way it's written is very poetic. If you I'm just going to change the wording a little bit. There is a people so numerous that it hides the earth from view. Okay, I mean, that is a very dramatic and poetic way of putting this. And I think that it is it's just a very beautiful way to describe an image. If you were writing, this would be a very powerful statement. Any comments about any of this yet? We were talking about comparing Egypt and Moab, here, and what the Pharaoh said and what Balak is saying. If no other here comes Mike. If there are no other questions about this, if we want to, in verse 6,
Marty,
yes,
excuse me. I just noticed I,
Yes.
I've never thought about this before. There's a play on words in that phrase that you're talking
Yes.
about the people come out of Egypt that hides the earth from view, so to speak. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's certainly a legitimate translation. I would never,
Right.
wouldn't change it. But there is a play on words that the same word that here we're translating as from view or from sight
Right.
also can refer to like a fountain or a water flow. It's not a river or even a stream, but like if you think of places like Ein Gedi or Ein Hod, where there's a small stream of water, and and maybe there's a play on words there that the Israelites would be so many that they can cover all of our land with water so that our herds would not be able to would not be able to graze, for example,
Okay.
and or making a reference to the importance of what the Israelites encountered or did with water in the Exodus from Egypt story with the plague, and then with coming through the waters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I
Okay.
just it's the first time I've ever noticed that.
That's interesting. I would have said something like arriving as a flood.
Yeah, sure, we'd say that in English, right?
Yes, that
Right,
would be the
right.
English
Yeah, but it's the same.
interpretation.
It's the same word that you change the vowels a little bit for ayin, which is your eye or your sight, or ain, which is like I say, like a little stream or a water source.
Okay. Now, it what is the word that in Hebrew? Is it via kutsu?
Ain. Hine chisa et ain haaretz. So,
Okay.
like I said, it could be the sight of, relating to your eyes,
Sure.
or it could be the water source.
Okay. Interesting. Or a wave of people.
Well, not necessarily a wave, but
Okay.
yeah, and again, and it doesn't imply necessarily the Hebrew word doesn't imply a huge number, a
Right.
huge flood. But the verb of that this would cover the land.
Right. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Marty.
Hi. We are reading in the
Morning,
book.
Shabbat Shalom.
We're reading in the book of Numbers, and we are on chapter 22, and we just finished verse 5. So we're going to be, we read through everything in this chapter, and now we've backtracked to go over a few things. In verse 6, uh, it, it, uh, it's fairly obvious that Balak wants Balaam to put a curse on upon the Israelites, so that he is able to, one way or the other, defeat them, either push them away, when the Israelites encounter Edom, they sort of are told you cannot go through here, and so they have to go around, or that he will have to do battle with them, and if they're cursed, he would probably, by laying a curse on them, they would win. That's his thought. Uh, any comments about that?
Uh, well, at 6, it says uh, For I know that he whom you bless is blessed indeed, and the whom you curse is cursed.
Right.
So if one, I'm just taking it to for today's thoughts, if I may. If one curses someone, then that person that in themselves is cursed. Uh,
Okay.
if one says something that is abominable, let's say they use that word about one person, then that person is receives um, the same this I don't want to say the same reward, but you understand what I'm trying to say. It receives the same thing back what they are giving.
That's one interpretation that you could have. The other is that Balaam here has a reputation, and we discussed this last time, that he has a reputation that he's a pretty good seer, seer, and he can see things that other people can't see. And some people have called him a prophet because of this. If words of goodness come out of his mouth and he blesses someone, uh, good things will happen for them. But not, it doesn't come back at him. It's for the other person. And if he says bad words about them, okay, the other person would suffer the curse, if you will. So, but what you say is very true. There are a lot of bits of wisdom about watching your tongue, that speak well of people, but because if you do, good things will come back to you. But if you speak ill of people, you may have bad things happen to you.
Yeah, it's I think the saying is guard your tongue.
Yes, guard it. Yes. But
Which
this
is the
is
which
in a
is the
different
which is
context.
the official prayer at that's the official prayer that we recite at the end of the silent prayer at the end of the Amida.
That's right.
No, right.
Wow.
Guard my lips from deceit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to two insights into the king of this time period. I'm not going to say, okay, let's analyze what it means for present leadership, but the king of in this time period is they were the kings, whether they're of Moab, Midian, or Israel, the kings were always had advisors, and they sought the word of the advisors, and they may have rejected their advice, but they did accept, and they knew that the advice, whether it was considered to be divine or whether it was considered to be magical, but the advice had legitimacy. Okay. Um, and secondly, the way that the Torah presents most, not all, but most of the kings of the other nations, and I think we mentioned this quickly last week, is Balak could have just as easily hired Balaam and said, give a special blessing to my people, bless my army. But he didn't say anything about his own people.
Right.
His hatred and his fear of the Israelites caused him to only be concerned about the curses that would go on the other. And so the difference between the benevolent ruler and the ruler who was only out to protect himself.
Good point. Good point. So any other discussion there? Well, let's look at uh, the verse 7. And this is what the rabbi is mentioning. Okay, that the elders of Moab and Midian, they do divination. And they are going to visit Balaam to send this message, and and he wants to. Balak wants Balaam to join in with them, basically, to levy this curse. So, and then, any comments about that?
No, but can you give examples concerning the elders of Moab and Midian? How do you say that word?
Midian?
Divina.
Oh, divination.
Yeah. Can you just give a brief definition of that?
It. I guess you would say fortune telling.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
That's about the closest I could come to it.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, fortune telling, predicting the future,
Right.
as you know. And so here's the distinction. When the rabbinic commentators look at this,
Okay.
they say that there's a difference between the way that Balak wanted Balaam to act. Okay, Balak wanted Balaam to act as a sorcerer,
Right.
where what the curse that he would do would alter what was going to happen. Okay, as opposed to a diviner, or whatever, divination that would predict what's going to happen.
Okay.
Two different roles, and the story kind of jumps back and forth between which it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Two other things. You've heard of a divining rod.
Yes. Water.
Okay. That's where it comes from. Okay.
Okay.
Divining rod comes from the divination because you're
Yeah, but
using.
it's not divine with a capital D.
That's right. And just a word, an extra word with a little caution with it, and that is the Uman and Thuman. In a way that's they would use the tools to divine using, I guess, the ephod and, where things are if somebody came to one of the priests, they would use these to say, oh, this is what you should do. Should I marry this man?
Or
Yes, or no.
Seeking the advice of the oracle.
Right.
Okay.
But we don't do that. But we had that discussion years ago, just to remind some people. So, so this was obviously a practice throughout the region. Okay.
Isn't that something like a Ouija board? You remember?
You could look at it that way too.
Was that you have today, and maybe
there are
that's
lots of ways of
Remember
doing
the
it. I mean,
magic 8-ball?
that's
yeah.
right.
Right.
And you had you
could turn it
have
upside down.
tarot cards. Okay, all of these are in the same category. Okay.
and then you go to Chinese restaurant, and you got the same thing
The
there.
fortune cookies, yes. Oh, man. Sorry, I brought all that up. Anyway,
It's
so then in verse 8, okay,
Oh,
Balaam
wait,
is
Marty, I'm
being,
sorry. I need to
yes, go
point
ahead.
out one more thing that we normally just skip over,
Okay,
and it may or may not be important for the way that we understand and analyze the story. Okay? All right. Going back without giving a whole long lecture on it, but what scholarship, biblical criticism says is that there are different authors or different
yes,
schools
J and
that
E, yes,
tell the story, and the difference in literary style or the difference in vocabulary is one way that you can tell which tradition was telling the story. Okay.
ah,
All right. And where the shift occurs. So which paragraph or which detail was written by which particular author or editor or school of thought or whatever. Okay. And the one that we can look at in this story is whether they refer to now the divinity with a capital D, whether they refer to the Lord or whether they refer to God. Biblical scholarship, not necessarily rabbinic tradition, but biblical scholarship would say they're different authors.
right,
Now, ultimately, it may have been brought together by the editorial board, and just say we're just going to tell the story, and just we're tired of using the one name, we're going to use the other name. But on the other hand, it might mean something when we look at the story. And the difference right here between verse 8 and 9 is a
right,
good example of that.
okay. So in other words, one is more formal than the other
I wouldn't necessarily say
in one
formal.
way of looking at it,
Yeah, that's one
in
way.
the
I
use
wouldn't
of
necessarily.
language.
Right.
Yes.
Usually they flow more along um, what are the different attributes or characteristics of the deity.
Okay. So in verse 8, we learn a little something about Balaam.
Yeah.
Okay, if somebody would if care to read verse 8.
I will.
Sure, thank you.
He said to them, he being, okay,
Well, the
thank you. Yeah. Okay. He said to them, spend the night here, and I shall reply to you as the Lord may instruct me. So the Moabite dignitary stayed with Balaam. You know
Okay.
what I came to me when I kept reading this is that he didn't come out of like knowing what the answer was. He didn't even hesitate telling them, you'll have to wait and I'll see what the Lord tells me. I think that's very, so that fits today's problems, things that I wish I hadn't have done, that I didn't pause, I didn't pray and see, really back away from the situation before just letting I know the answers, that kind of a thing, come forward. So that's what I got out of that passage.
Okay. Very good.
Now that she's
Is
saying that, I
yeah,
think I see something like the humility of
Okay.
just, yeah, like you just said, just let me wait, pray, God will answer it. Sometimes quickly, sometimes years, but to step back and humble yourself and to pray and ask God before you make an important decision or a move.
Okay.
yeah.
That's how I see it.
Can you remember anyone that we've read about who has also done that? You're shaking your head, Mariana. No. Who frequently will, when being confronted with a question that's a serious question, who will sleep
Gosh.
on it.
Goes into the tent
Moses?
of meeting and, and
That's
right.
right. Moses.
Yeah, Moshe. Yeah.
Moshe,
I was
Moshe,
there.
is that how you say it? Moshe, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
oh,
So,
Yeah.
so in a way, there's certain similarities and certain differences between the characters. We last time we spoke a little bit about Balaam, and in addition, it appears that he's always willing to be to accept payment for what he does.
Hmm.
Okay, as opposed to someone like Moses, who is not taking any pay for what he does.
Okay, so when he says to the dignitaries or the scout, whatever, the messengers, the ones who came to him, when he says, "I'm going to sleep on it," okay,
Mm-hmm.
is that because he knows that his curse is will not really be that effective? But if he says to that right now, then he doesn't get paid. But if he sleeps on it and comes up with this notion that, oh, well, God was speaking to me and God, da, 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 then he can say to these, do you really want me to do this? Even knowing that, my price might be a little bit higher if we know that, that the God is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, it's possible.
Yeah.
But we have to also raise a question. Does Balaam always do that? We
No,
don't know. We don't
But
know.
the
We
answer to
make the
that,
assumption that he doesn't do it. Yes,
but to answer what Rabbi said, though, is that if you read on, he
yes.
did listen. He did
Yeah.
follow
So,
what,
so we
so
don't know if he
whatever.
does
Yeah.
this all the time, or if it's
Okay.
just
The situation. I don't know.
it doesn't say. It doesn't say.
it also doesn't say how he had built up his international renown. Obviously he had a reputation already
Right.
for the king to have heard of him.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
It's not like Balak could get just Google me a soothsayer kind of thing.
And
Can I ask?
also, maybe he's trying to come up with, if things don't work out the right way, he can say, well, I didn't know any better. The God made me do it.
Right, God made me do it. Exactly.
That's an excuse that has been used also. Yes, Marianne.
It says he offered him money, but I don't see where it says he accepted the money.
No, he hasn't yet. He hasn't
Okay.
done anything with that. That's correct. So uh, so what does in verse 9, God appears to Balaam. It doesn't,
Not the Lord who
Okay.
he said he was waiting to hear from the Lord, but
right.
now it's God who appears to him. Maybe not. Is there a difference?
Okay. You have different stories that you're talking about. How the which is higher. A lord can also be a king, or in reference to a king. but
Hmm.
but it could also be a reference to God. So we don't know yet.
But it also could just be a simple narrative, like you see in the
Sure.
newspaper. In one paragraph,
Yeah.
it says the president, and the next paragraph it says Mr. Trump.
Yeah.
So,
That's right. You
it
don't
might
know.
not mean anything.
And it's just literary. You don't want to keep repeating the same word over
Right,
and over.
right.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes, you
Yeah.
had a
So
comment.
what is it? What is the definition in Hebrew? Is there a difference there, Lord and God,
Yes, yeah, yeah. There are definitely different words in Hebrew.
Yes.
Definitely.
or definitions too? Or
Well, I wouldn't say definitions.
Names.
I would say, um, uh, as I mentioned before, is that usually if it's talking about Lord, the rabbinic tradition is that emphasizes certain attributes,
oh,
as opposed to God. God might be more compassion, mercy, and Lord might be more master, even warrior, things like that.
hmm.
At some point, it would be interesting, Rabbi, to go over 72 names.
Oh,
Uh, can we do 72? Can we do
I'm not going to do it
70,
now,
70 names
but
in 60 minutes? Right. Okay. Right.
no, but it would be an interesting discussion,
Oh, sure.
because
Sure,
all
sure,
this,
sure.
how the names are used and in what context, things
Yeah.
like that. So it's fascinating, and there are books on that subject.
okay.
Anyway, so God is now making an appearance in the story, and in verse 9, uh, God is asking Balaam, "What do these people want of you?" And what is Balaam's reply in verse 10 and 11? He addresses God and he says that Balak, and just like we saw in verse 2, everything is repeated here. That Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, sent me this message. And he goes on to say, here's a people that came out of Egypt and hides the earth from view. He's now repeating what Balak has said. Come now and curse them for me. Perhaps I can engage them in battle and drive them off. And then God answers Balaam, and he says, "Do not go with them. You must not curse that people, for they are blessed." Okay. Any comments here?
Um,
Marty, does that mean that they're referring to like a pagan type of God? I'm getting lost
No,
in this.
no.
Okay,
The Israelite God, if you will.
okay.
He's well versed in it. There are other characters in the Bible that don't march along with the Israelites, but they know about uh, the God of the Israelites,
and they do interact with the God of
and
the
they
Israel.
do. And some
Um,
know, do good things, and some
I
not so
kind of
good.
wish that Steve was here with his etymology book, because I just noticed that so I guess it's in verse 11, when Bilam is quoting uh, what the what the request is.
Hmm.
When he's quoting it, it's a different verb for, come now and curse them for me. That's a different verb that is used the other times when they talk about curse. Again, that's first time that I really noticed the difference there. I have to watch and see how it continues in the remainder of the story. And I don't know what the source or what the etymology is of that other verb. It's not
Okay.
as frequent.
Do they both mean the exact thing, same thing?
I'm not. That's why That's what I'm wondering. I don't, and I don't have my Hebrew biblical dictionary handy to look
Okay.
it up. Nor do I see a particular commentary
I
on it.
have not seen any commentary on that.
Yeah, but it is a different verb. Um,
There must be. Anytime we have a question, other people have raised the same question over the years.
oh,
So there
sure,
has to
sure,
be
sure,
a
sure.
source, but I just don't know.
Hmm.
It's a word that I'm not familiar with. That I don't see a connection to modern Hebrew. So
Well, yes, I
I don't
wish
know.
Steve
I
had
mean,
his
the other typical word
book.
for curse we're very familiar with. That's the one that we've seen all the way going back to Genesis. But this one I don't remember seeing before.
Okay. Again, another author.
Well, sure, it
Sure.
might be from a different,
Different
if
background.
if somebody was telling the story from Detroit, somebody else was telling the story from Birmingham, Alabama, some of the verbs might be a little different.
Sure.
But the intention is the same, but the verb might be a little different.
And this story, though, is not only in the Torah. This story is, as we had discussed before, is found elsewhere
Yeah.
in different cultures in the Middle East. So the, some of the verbiage is a little different, but the stories are similar. So anyway, uh, so so this is what Balak has said to Balaam through the messengers. And now, what is God's reply in verse 12?
Sorry, Charlie.
Okay, it says, "You must not do this. You must not curse those people, for they are blessed." Okay, so that's a very firm statement. It's not, it's just there. So what happens in verse 13? So
The
what
other
does
one,
Balaam
the Lord won't let me go.
right? Okay, not so it isn't that I won't go. The God or the Lord is saying I shouldn't go.
Hmm.
Do you see something that he's setting up? Or could be setting up by saying it this way.
That Balaam is setting up.
Yeah,
Raise his price.
yeah. It's he's using this as more of as an excuse. He's not he's trying to say, well, as the rabbi put it, up his price, but at the same time, uh, uh, how sure is he that he's hearing the right words? I'm speaking as if I were Balaam. But does he realize that the response that he got after he asked the question came from God? Is he saying, well, as many of us do, we hear something that somebody says, and we have to have some sort of excuse because we don't want to necessarily accept any responsibility for whatever actions we have to do. Is he trying to set himself up as a pawn, as rather than a major player? Because he could have said, no, I can't go, period, and just leave it at that. He doesn't have to say that God did it, told him not to go.
Marty,
Go ahead. Yes. Well, okay. Two people
Mayor,
here. Oh,
go
okay.
ahead, Dawn. Go ahead.
I'll pick on Donna first, and then I'll pick on you, Marianne. Go ahead.
okay, I kind of jumped ahead there, but it said that when they went back to Balaam, they told him, Balak, Balaam, they told him, Balak, that Balaam refused to come with us. It doesn't say the Lord told him not to come. So there's kind of I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but Balaam uses God or the Lord. And when the dignitaries either forgot that or didn't think it was important, or
Say that's the beauty of this story, because now it leaves so many different. It opens the door to so many interpretations, and so we're going to have to see it. These are just steps leading up to a climax. Okay.
Right.
And we're just going to, be drawn in more and more. Well, what's going on? And you're supposed to be getting more and more excited. Okay.
then Marianne.
Yes, yes, Marianne.
No, I see here, Marty, is that blame, starting with Adam and Eve. Adam blamed Eve. He could have said, I don't want the apple. Eve blamed the snake. She could have said, nah, don't want to be bothered with this. That nobody is taking responsibility for their action. It's
Right.
always somebody else's responsibility, somebody else's fault, that they don't want to own what they're doing. That's just, and I'm seeing that same thing here as well. God told me so. I'm not going to be involved in this. It's, just take it up with God. That there always seems to be that lack of almost confidence or trust. And when God says, don't do it, don't do it. And when he says, do it, then go ahead and do it. So that's I think where I'm getting my confusion from here. It's like nobody wants to own it. They just want to go. He went that way, and they did it.
This is what I felt too, Marianne, because it doesn't. Here we're led to believe that Balaam is a masterful sorcerer, a seer. He can do divination. He can do all kinds of things. And he has a level of confidence, but there's also a level we have to ask the question: is he an honest man? In all these things that we're saying, well, he might mean this, he might mean that. Well, he could be doing this because he wants more money to get more money out of this or whatever. Or you could take the stance maybe that he's not capable of understanding what's going on. And because the other people are pawns. Yes, Rabbi.
And there's also, Marty, you're talking reminds me. There's a midrash that that Bilam, and you asked, is he an honest man? Okay, that Bilam knows that he has a certain skill, but he's also very torn personally. And so there's this midrash that he says, this is my opportunity to really see it, if I can understand the Israelites' God, okay, who is really the higher power here? What they call a
Mhm.
melech basar badam, a flesh and blood king, a human king, or this God that the Israelites are talking about. There are all these stories and these stories about, and so there's this midrash that that Bilam kind of sets it up. Well, like here's the plus and minus column, assets and debits kind of thing. Well, Balak can do this, and but the God of the Israelites can do this, and da da da. Whoa, there's a talking ass. Wait a minute.
Yeah, we're gonna
You
get
know,
there. That's right.
right,
And it's a she.
right, yeah, uh-huh.
That's right.
I'm just gonna
We
let
could
that
have
one
some
go.
interesting discussions when we get
Yeah,
there.
Marianne, let it go. I heard you. I heard you. Okay, right.
Anyway, so the Moabite dignitaries, they're passing the buck. They just say Balaam refused to come. So Balak in verse 15, what does Balak decide to do?
He sends numerous more dignitaries,
That's right. And
And
also just more
more
distinguished.
distinguished, more,
right. So so what's he's saying, well, boy, it doesn't say what he's actually thinking that made him do that. He's just, it just says he did it. But
he's not
we want to get into
kings aren't used to
his
being
head.
heard no.
Excuse me?
The kings aren't used to having someone say no.
That's right.
So you put more pressure, more dignitaries, really push the issue. Maybe he will. Maybe, there'll be enough energy there or power that he'll decide to go ahead and do that. I don't know. Yeah.
But obviously they don't, there's another side to this,
Okay.
and that is that maybe he's not quite sure of Balaam, that maybe Balaam would have the power then to curse him.
Oh.
I don't want to do this, and if you keep bothering me, I'll put a curse on you. And this guy apparently, Balaam has a track record of being able to predict the future, do all kinds of things, and that's why he's being singled out. He has wide renown, fame and renown. And so if this is the case, I don't know, it just doesn't say. It doesn't say what's going on. It just is that, okay, Balak receives the message, Balaam refused to come. And so he turns around and says, more important people, more and more of them, as you point out. So, so then this next group goes out and they come to Balaam.
Oh, wait a minute, Marty, I'm sorry. In
Yes,
17, so that
yes,
whole thing that I
I
was
was about
talking
to get
about,
there.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
17?
Well, go ahead. It's okay. You just do
Oh,
that.
okay, all right. So 17 has that same verb that I was talking about before, that in the last time they translated it as curse. This time, at least my translation here says, come and damn the people for me.
Right.
So apparently I guess it's a different kind of incantation between a curse and a damn, because it's different Hebrew words and different English words.
I
The
guess
message,
what you're
yeah,
saying makes sense, but
yeah.
I just don't know. Uh,
Hmm.
we've had a similar discussion here when we're talking about Jacob and Rachel. She's sitting on the idols,
Mhm,
And
right.
he said, and he's, you know, and he says, let anybody, he doesn't know that Rachel has done any of this. And he says, let, in a response to Laban, let that person be cursed. Ooh, wait a minute. We better watch what we say when we use these words. Maybe they do have an effect. Okay. Directly or indirectly. And yes, Michael, it can come back to haunt you. It's a very, I think it's a very interesting, another interesting discussion that we could have as well. So they here the more distinguished group says, and in a very formal way of doing it. Okay. I'm almost reminded of 2001: A Space Odyssey, the way this begins. Thus spake Zarathustra. Okay. But here it says, thus says Balak. It's a very formal response. The first one is very casual. I mean, I should say statement. The first one is very casual, but this one, it shows more importance about Balak. Thus says Balak, son of Zippor. I mean, it has his title is being mentioned, but and what did they ask? But they temper it by using the word please. It is not being ordered to come, being asked to come. And if he does so, in verse 17, Balaam will receive rewards from Balak. But it's also to damn the people
Right.
of Israel.
That's interesting because what the difference of a curse and to be damned, it doesn't seem like such a big sting, like less. I don't.
Well, this is no problem. Just
Yeah, I don't have
damn
to have
them.
the answer,
That's
but there is a
play a
difference.
curse on them. It's
Yeah,
nothing.
you got it right.
Yeah. Uh, so, so what does Balaam reply? If so, again, we're going to be involving a monetary excuse here. If you would kindly read verses 18 and 19 again. Michael, would you like to do that?
Balaam replied to Balak's officials, "If Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not do anything, big or little, contrary to the command of the Lord my God. So you two stay here overnight and let me find out what else the Lord may say to me."
Okay, so we don't know if he's using the Lord's name in vain, as the excuse, and he's just going to think about the offer. We don't know. It doesn't say. We can add our own thoughts here.
Yeah, and Balak doesn't say, "What do you mean the Lord your God?" That phrase just goes unchallenged.
That's right. And were you getting after something, Rabbi?
Um, I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe again, I mean, there's no indication that Bilam is secretly Jewish. Okay, but apparently the fact that Bilam had a strong relationship, I guess that's the word, with the Israelite God was part of that reputation. So that it was known. It was known, and it went with it was on his resume. It went with the territory that, hey, if you want to hire me to do this job, please know that I do believe in, or I have a relationship with, or whatever, or that I'm going to seek advice from the Israelite God, who is known as Adonai, whatever.
Right. So there is another character in the book of Exodus that has a similar relationship and is also a teacher, not just a shepherd, but also a teacher, and has a relationship with God, the Jewish God.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
There's another character in the book of Exodus who is not an Israelite, but also has this type of relationship as well.
Sure, Jethro.
Jethro,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
They know of the God of the Israelites, and they know the precepts and like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're Jewish. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that, because there's one. Let's see, Jethro is a Kenite, I think, or
Well, he's a
a
priest of
Moabite,
Midian. He's the priest of
Midianite.
Midian, but yeah,
Okay,
I don't remember
and
specifically the clan, right? Yeah.
okay, and then and so they know about this story. Obviously, they know about the Exodus, and they know about some of the other history, ancient history. Um, you have to assume that, because the way they interact in the different stories, it gives you a hint that not only did the Hebrews, Israelites, know about uh, the Jewish God, they they also knew about the gods of other nations. So it's a um, so there's a constant interaction that goes on behind the scenes. Like, you already have a rough idea as to what goes on in China, and based on what you have read before, what you've heard before, things like that. That doesn't necessarily mean you're Chinese. I'm just picking on the Chinese, poor Chinese. Okay. So,
Well, it was excuse me, but it was a spread out area too. So there
yes,
would be
yes,
messengers delivering
sure.
some of the stories,
Think
So,
of the Wild West. Okay, you just rode and you knew people from one town to another, and you passed the news from one town to the other.
and I'm sure it got embellished along the way because that's what we
Of
do
course, of
as
course.
humans. So, yeah, anyway, okay. Yeah.
So, uh, so does God say in verse 20?
Yeah.
God says, "Okay, let's play this out."
Yeah, he's saying, I've told you
Okay.
not to go,
Right.
but
But if you
for
insist,
whatever reason, you
right,
want to go. And it could be the money, fame, fortune, who knows? Who knows? But but this is what what they feel. Um, it appears that Balaam is again trying to find an excuse, and God is saying, okay, if you can't get the message the first time, I'm going to test you, and we'll see what happens. So, uh, so it's very clear. Okay, go ahead. If these men have come to invite you, you may go with them, but there's a but. Whatever I command you, that you shall do. We all grew up at different, and growing up, and this we've heard our parents say the same admonition, and you may have said the same thing. I told you not to do it, or I told you not to go, that I wouldn't let you go to the prom. But if you go, there are certain conditions, and that they don't realize that they're on the TV. That now
yeah,
they
yeah.
okay,
Now
we
I did
got.
right. Yeah. I think they're he's setting it up for the annual meeting.
Yes,
That's
for
right.
tomorrow. That's right. So, but it's so basically it's like look at it as a parent and a child, and I told you not to do it, and if you're going to do it, go ahead and see what happens. You'll learn the hard way. That's one way I see it. I don't know if anyone sees it a different way. Okay, so in verse 21, Balaam uh, gets up. It doesn't go into all the details, doesn't say if he had breakfast, but it did say that he saddles his ass and departs with the dignitaries. Okay. But God is very angry that he's going. He's not heeding the message. So wait a minute. Is this when what are the possible reasons why Balaam thinks it's okay to go?
Because he's being bribed. Oh, yeah. I see a lot of propaganda in this that you have, the arm twisting, see it my way, see it my way, see it my way. That there's more and more pressure being put on him to go along with the wishes of these people who want to curse. That it's it's is he making the right spiritual decision for himself and his relation with God?
Correct. But why is he being, what's pulling him into this to do it anyway?
Who knows? Money, his ego,
Yeah.
his pride, mucho importante. So now I'm going to get more. That it's kind of a real fragile ego play going on there.
Okay. So what happens? And I have no idea why the she asks. Okay, I have no idea. There may be some midrash somewhere that I'm unaware of. And
Mm.
believe me, I don't, even though I have other books and like that, I have not come across any commentaries about, a she ass. But so I don't know if there's an implication here to another story or not. I just don't know. We'll wait for the rabbi I'll ask Will to see what he says. and Balaam takes his two servants while he's doing this. Okay, but what happens? Now they're chugging away, and what happens in verse 22?
It was the ass that caught sight of the angel. It wasn't Balaam.
Right,
It was the
that's
ass.
right. And so uh, so did you want to comment further about that?
No, it's just an insight. I'll just listen, you know. But I think
Okay.
it's interesting. A she-ass, and the she-ass sees before the human. So,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
that's kind of interesting.
It is because and there are several things that we can talk about.
Okay.
Uh, so what happens here when the uh, what is the apparition? Okay, there's an angel of the Lord standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand.
Mhm.
Well, obviously, if that suddenly appeared, yeah, you too would swerve off the road and go into the fields. But what does Balaam do? He still hasn't seen this, and he turns, he starts to beat the ass.
Hmm.
But then they get back on the road,
She,
and it happens again. In verse 24.
Right.
Do you want and it's getting a narrower passage,
Right.
right?
More
Either
resistance.
side.
Yeah.
And the ass again sees this sight of the angel with the sword, but this time presses herself against the wall and squeezes Balaam's foot against the wall. So what happens again? He beats her.
and
And however, if do you want to read verse 26?
Once more, the angel of the Lord moved forward and stationed himself on a spot so narrow that there was no room to swerve right or left.
Okay, so this is it's a very precarious situation. But what happens? So how does the what does the ass do at that time?
It lays down
Lays in
under.
under Balaam.
Yeah.
And again, Balaam becomes furious and beats the ass with his stick. And now in verse 28, the Lord opens the ass's mouth. And what does she say? Anyone, if they're following along, if you just repeat that.
What
What
have
is
I
she-
done
What is, yes,
to
go
you
ahead.
that make you have beaten me these 3 times?
And then Balaam responds,
You
you've
have
made
made
a
a mockery
mockery.
of me. If I had a sword with me, I would kill you.
But he doesn't say, why is an ass talking? You know, it's like, hello, isn't that unusual, Balaam?
That's right. And so so why don't we finish this in verse 30 if somebody would read.
Incidentally, Marty, and I apologize. Maybe you said it when I had to leave for a second. What happened to the two servants or the two lads who were with him?
Yeah.
They,
They didn't say anything. They didn't
nobody
interact. They didn't
says a
interject.
word.
They didn't.
No,
They ran away. What? We don't know,
we
right?
do
Okay.
not know.
Okay. All right. Just wondering.
I mean, this is a very unusual vision, just to see all this happening, what's going on, and the ass being beaten, and all the threats going along. But uh, one of the things that Balaam says in verse 29, you're mocking me. Okay, what is going on? He still doesn't get it, but we may get it. Okay,
Mhm.
so let's finish with verse
Well,
30
or is it you're mocking me in the presence of these witnesses?
of the
They
witnesses.
they've got
Yes.
a front row seat.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a good point. So in
Okay.
verse 30, why don't somebody read that out loud?
The ass said to Balaam, "Look, I am the ass that you have been riding all along until this day. Have I been in the habit of uh, doing this to you?" And he answered, "No."
Okay. Uh, if I were to talk about Moby Dick, I mentioned this before. Okay. What do these words mean? Why is any ideas? Well, you can take it at face value and say, "Oh yeah, here, why you've now beaten me 3 times? Have I ever done anything like this before? Why are you beating me?" And the ass, I mean, and Balaam answers, "No."
Could,
You've never done this before. Yes,
right.
go ahead.
Well, I don't, okay, I'll just say it and I might be totally off, but you know, that was the Lord speaking through the ass,
Mm-hmm.
and so and Balaam has gone along with the commandments through the Lord until this day. And hasn't God had the habit of doing this to you? So is that I guess I need to be confirmed or whatever on this, but that's what I see. It wasn't God has spoken through different things, through a bush,
Right.
And so this is unusual. God will go through different people or objects or whatever. But finally, Balaam says no. He says no. He recognizes that, whether he recognizes the Lord or whatever. But it goes on it's on 31 that the Lord uncovers his eye.
That was a similar thing that I saw too, and Donna, I think it is an important consideration. 3 times God has been asked, "What should I do?" 2 of those times, no. Well, and the third time, well, go ahead. If you really need to go, go. But wait a minute. maybe I can still show you what, something, there's a lesson to learn in what I'm trying to tell you. Not me, but, God's saying to Balaam, I'm going to show him, give him a final lesson. Maybe he'll understand that the third time, remember, um, he's bringing to mind that Balaam is entering into a debate with God. Why should I listen to you this time? They're going to give me all this wealth. And so in the story, maybe it's not telling us that at the beginning, but now we're starting to see that God is getting upset with Balaam, and this may be how the lesson will be given.
The 3 times I could connect for myself the number 3 with this lesson. And this comes from my teachings in the Orthodox, that if a person wants to learn Judaism, another religion, the rabbi, now this is the way I learned it. This is not from the Reform, not at all.
All right.
So it's
Michael, please don't say it that way. It's not necessarily true. I
Well,
know.
this is just what I learned.
I'm anticipating what you're going to say.
I
Okay, so
know.
go ahead and finish it, but don't categorize it as Orthodox versus Reform, please.
I don't see the problem. This is what I learned. That's all. And so,
And I'm telling you that it's not necessarily true. You may have
it is
learned.
for
You may
me,
have.
but it is for me, Rabbi. It is for me, not for you. So please don't take offense of it. No, I'm not. That's not what it's meant. Please don't do that, because I'm not trying to offend you in any way.
I'm not taking it as a personal offense. I'm trying to explain. I'd like to explain that there's a truism here, and the truism is that Jewish tradition says, as you're teaching, as you're explaining, that one is supposed to reject someone who approaches Judaism 3 times. I assume that's where you were going. That's not just Orthodox. That's Orthodox, conservative, Reform. That's all Jewish tradition. So I wouldn't categorize it. Please don't categorize it as only the Orthodox. That's what I'm saying.
I didn't say only.
You did.
I didn't use the word only. I said this is what I learned in my bringing up
Okay.
how I was taught.
Let's
So I'll just say
let's
it,
get
please.
back to things. I understand, to do this, Michael.
I didn't
Yes.
say some. I'm just sitting here listening, and I have something to say, like
Yes,
everybody
that's
else.
what I want to say. If you would finish what you're saying,
Yeah,
I would appreciate it. So, but
yeah,
getting us
and I
back
don't
on track.
appreciate being interrupted like that. I don't interrupt anybody. Just let me say what I want to say. So 3 times you go to the Orthodox rabbi. Once, and he turns you away, and the second he'll turn you away and tell you to be the best. If you're a Catholic, be the best Catholic you can. And when you come the 3rd time, the Orthodox rabbi would see that this person is passionate and then start the lesson. That's all I wanted to say, and disconnect those that what I
And
wanted to say. That's it.
That's right. But
No, it's not a big deal.
okay. But as the rabbi was saying also, that this is something that's throughout Judaism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And I
not just the
respect what the
Orthodox.
rabbi said.
Then
I listened to
nobody's
him. I
trying to
respect it,
fight.
and we all have an opinion.
Nobody's trying to do anything like that, Michael. I know. I understand.
So
But
why did he interrupt me? Why did he interrupt me? That was uncalled for, Marty. I'm not going to stay silent anymore.
I apologize for the interruption, but when something, when a misleading statement was being
Right.
made that that's incorrect, it's my job as the rabbi of the community to correct something about Judaism. And that's why I jumped in. I apologize if it was an interruption, but I felt it needed a correction.
Okay. Yes, Donna, you mentioned you had your hand up.
Well, this is my experience. Okay, this is a personal experience, and so I primarily went to a conservative temple, and when I had asked my rabbi about conversion, I don't want to say he turned me down, but he said, you don't need to do this, you know, and I'm glad he said that because I was so new. I hadn't really participated in the High Holy Days. So that was like 8 years ago. And I'm grateful because it really shows me and God that I'm serious. I really want this. So, but that's through the conservative. That was my experience. So
Yeah, it happens.
that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. So getting back to
Yeah.
the story, so what is God's response to Balaam's statement? No, I've never beaten you before. I've never done this before. So what in verse 31, what does God do?
He uncovers Balaam's eyes.
Right.
He makes him see.
So what does he see?
An angel
What
standing
does
in the way.
Balaam?
Yeah.
He now sees the angel of the Lord, who is an answer. And so what does the angel say in verse 32? Why have you beaten your ass these 3 times? It is I who came out as an adversary, for the errand is obnoxious to me. So what you're doing, Balaam, is obnoxious to me. And it's a very strong word. You've upset me.
I wonder what the word would be in Hebrew. The Hebrew word for obnoxious. Of course, you say it's a strong word. In English, it is. In English, it is. But what about the Hebrew?
Any comments?
It's a very, very strong negative. Obnoxious is good. Yarate is the Hebrew.
Okay. So here now this is turning into a teaching lesson here. Okay, in verse 33. And when the ass saw me, she shied away because of me those 3 times. If she had not shied away from me, you are the one I should have killed while sparing her. A play on Balaam's earlier words. And so what does Balaam do in verse 34?
Well, he admits that he didn't know.
Right.
I didn't see, I didn't know
right.
that you were there.
That it was you,
Yeah.
that it was God or the angel of God all along. And oh, now I understand. Okay.
Mhm.
And what does Balaam add on here? He said he realizes his error, and he says, if you still disapprove, I will turn back. Then what does God say to him? Go with the men, but you must, well, you must say nothing except what I tell you. So Balaam went on with Balak's dignitaries. So what does that imply?
That you have free will to do what you want, but you'll end up doing what I say anyway. That he's saying to him, go ahead, but you'll still do what I want you to do.
Okay. And so so they go on their way. And any comments that you any other comments that you want to come up with? Oh, by the way, uh, no peeking, no,
No, I'm going
peeking,
back.
Mary Ann.
Oh,
But who
Oh, I'm a piggy.
are there
I
any
just-
other animals in Torah that have spoken?
Snakes.
The
yeah,
snake in the garden that of Eden.
right.
So, any other comments?
I need to be reminded of what God had told him initially. Was it God or God said, "Follow my"? There, he worded it differently this time. He said, "Say nothing except what I tell you." Prior to that, what did I have to? That's why I was looking back. It was a different.
Whatever I command you, that you should do.
Okay, thank you. And now it's a little stern. It's really like, but you must say nothing except what I tell you. It's a little
Right.
sterner. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
We're coming closer to where Balaam will actually be called upon to pronounce words. So whether the question is whether they will be his words or whether he's just a spokesman for God's words.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So, we'll only get to a certain point today, but that we won't get into the rest of the story yet. So what happens that if they are now going on their way, and obviously there are messengers involved because Balak has learned that Balaam is coming.
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
what gives? Are you going to do what I'm paying you to do? And Balaam says, no, it's obvious to me that I can only say what God wants me to say.
Right. And the commentary, well, not the commentary, but what Balak says, when I first sent to invite you, why didn't you come to me? Am I really unable to reward you? And Balaam says, now I have come to you. Have I the power to speak freely? I'm going to paraphrase, I can only say the words that God puts into my mouth. Any comments about that? Does that mean that that now he's a prophet?
No.
Expand on that. Why not?
Well, Moses would be the only prophet, regardless of what would be in this story. Nothing would take the place of that. That's what I would come up with.
Okay. In the stories of the prophets,
You mean the biblical prophets,
the
prophets,
biblical prophets,
the later
yeah.
prophets, right?
Do they have hard times in their lives, or do they just go on doing what, they just become prophets? Or do they have to, does something befall them before they become a prophet?
Well, they would have to demonstrate something very, very powerful and dramatic to become a prophet. They have to show them. They have to demonstrate that they have talking to God, and God has talked to him.
Okay. However, do some of the prophets run into problems trying to escape bad things?
Or even just the call to escape, just the call to prophecy.
Even the call, that's right. They don't even necessarily know they're a prophet. And so how do you know when somebody is a prophet or not? This is where this will be our last.
It's not based on their salary.
Not on their salary, no.
I read somewhere, if I remember, like a seer or all the different ways of seeing in the future and stuff like that. It said that a prophet, what he speaks becomes true, right? And a false prophet, you don't know, or you don't know, it doesn't come to fruition, it doesn't happen. And that's how you make the difference, something along that line, or know the difference.
But how do you know when, if somebody said to you, I spoke with God last night and he's now telling me what to say. Think about what would happen in
God
today's
is or is
world.
not telling you what to say.
Excuse me?
God is or is not telling you what to say.
Is telling you what to say. In today's world, look at it in today's world. How would people react? Is the old cartoon with the fellow in a white toga and he's carrying a sign, the end is near. Okay.
Well, you see that too. Go ahead.
No, okay. I was just going to say, people will react today. I would assume the same way that they reacted thousands of years ago. The guy's crazy.
They may think that, so how do we know? How do we really know? I mean, it happened to the Jewish people. What is it? Some Tzvi, what is it? Shabbatai Tzvi or something like that. It was a false prophet. He even tried to convert the people to Islam. They had a good following.
The way I see it, you would know today, is because there's so many of these individuals that claim this, and it starts to be watered down, not to be real, because people make, for example, as some woman said, that the world is going to end in 12 years, almost 12 years ago. And when people start to talk like this and it doesn't come true, it weighs on people's minds that, it's a bunch of baloney. Thousands of years ago, things, as you can see, they were more biblical. There was a more uh, thought process, with things happening. But thousands of years later, when people come up with this, people just don't believe it. And the people who do believe it are really, pardon the expression, they're fools. Like Jim Jones led people to their death. They believed in that, and it's just it's just it doesn't make if it doesn't make sense, it's not true. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. I
Yeah, go
like
ahead.
to comment on
Yeah.
that. Balak offered money to Balaam, fortune.
Right.
The different sects that come out also want money. They want money. They're not a nonprofit, and so. And I've always believed that. What's the catch? This looks on. Oh, I give up my whole life. I sell my house. This can't be true. This cannot be a true way. So if they're wanting money, I back off, unless it's a charity I know about.
But that's still money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and false prophets.
So,
They're not asking for anything.
or is it that
Maybe
it has to be what they do over a period of time? They do and say,
I
and then in retrospect, we call them a prophet. I don't know. Yes, Rabbi.
Yeah, just two or three things that the classical text on this, at least for the 20th and 21st century Jewish world, is Abraham Joshua Heschel's book,
Natural.
On the Prophets.
I like.
But the two of the and we've kind of touched on them. Two of the main characteristics of a legitimate or a valid prophet are, one, that he rejects the call, that I'm not, I don't want it, I'm not worthy, run away like Jonah, whatever it might be. And the second, Marty, is what you were leading up to, is the consistency of the message.
Right.
Right, as Donna was saying, and Michael too, is that sometimes you can't know if the message is true in our own lifetime or whatever, and it has to be evaluated in perspective afterwards. But what Jewish tradition has always said is that if the message is consistent,
Okay.
not all the prophets claim to be speaking for God, but if the message is consistent with the
Right.
message that we know to be God's, then yes, that's a valid characteristic.
So it becomes, so now think about Moses. Very loosely, we've been calling him a prophet. But now if you listen to the definition that the rabbi has stated very eloquently, you now understand why even in Torah that he will be remembered as a prophet.
as the prophet par excellence.
That's right.
There's never again will there be a prophet like Moses. Doesn't mean that there won't be any more prophets. It means that
Correct.
there'll never be another prophet like Moses was.
That's right. And that's the closing statement.
Right.
He Moses, I would think he set the standard. He has set the standard of prophets,
Mhm.
Moses. And today you have people that are very holy, but they do not rise to that level of prophecy. But they're very good. You take this the Christian woman priest, Mother Teresa. She was a very, very decent person, but she was not a prophet. And you have people today like that are very, very, very holy, but that does not necessarily make them a prophet. I believe that Moses would be the pardon the expression, the industry standard. I don't like you know, I don't mean to disrespect there, but
No, but it's
Well,
lack
true.
of lack of a better term,
it's a
you
good
know.
phrase. Sure.
So thank you. And so what made him the industry standard? He talked as it is in the Torah, which I believe he talked to God and God talked to him. And so that's how my personal look at this thing.
Very good. Yes, Marianne.
Yeah, I think Michael just made a good point using the example of Mother Teresa. She taught by her example, but she never went around talking so much about her example. That actions speak louder than words, and her actions were speaking much louder than anything she could have said. Yeah, and I have to go back to what Donna said before. The she asks.
Go
It's
ahead.
just my feeling that women are granted some different level of spirituality than men are. Women's intuition, mother's intuition, that we just have a different connection and a purpose and a place. Then
Yeah.
men have their place and purpose. But anyway,
It's that little bit on the X chromosome that's missing on the Y.
Yeah.
Y chromosome.
I'd like to make
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
just
Yes.
a quick comment about Mother Teresa. She came out, or they published after her death, her writings and her notes that she took all this time. And it was mentioned in there that she went through times that she doubted there was even a God, and that really spoke to me when I read that. It was like, hey, it's even she doubted, and that was very powerful for me, to know I'm human and another human, irregardless. We have our moments of doubt about God. So anyway, yeah.
Okay. Michael, I think you're going to have the last word. We're running
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, I
Hungry.
just want to say one thing, and I hope everybody understands this. I am not a rabbi, and when I say something, I believe that I should be given a little bit of leeway when I say something. It may not be right, but I'm not the rabbi, and I believe that a little leeway in anyone's case should be given. And that's what I just want to say.
Okay. Most of us here, we have to rely on the rabbi all the time because that is our fountain of information. Okay, and the rest of us, me included, it's based on what we come across in our readings. The rabbi has done it for a lifetime. So he's our final expert on things and does a good job.
Okay.
Anyway, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
Have a
Shalom.
very good, healthy
Shalom,
week,
Shabbat.
and see you next week.